Hello everyone, my name is Glauber Destro. I'm here in North Italy. I serve here in Italy and I really love to talk about missions in Europe. That's the reason why today I'll have this conversation with my friend Lois, who is American from New Jersey, and he's serving for about 3 years in Belgium, especially in Brussels. So we want to share with you this conversation in order that you can pray better about Brussels, about Belgium, or maybe God can talk with you while you are listening this, watching this conversation. So God bless you, and let's start. Hello, Luis. How are you?
Hello, Glauber.
So could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, what your services over there?
Yeah, sure. So I am originally from New Jersey, and 3 years ago we moved here over to Brussels for work reasons. But we got plugged into a great church, a great opportunity here in Brussels. We found a church called Life Point. They are based in Tennessee, but they have a church plant here in Brussels and also one in Bangkok. So yeah, like when we got here, I contacted the pastor at the time. We exchanged a couple emails. We got plugged in, and it was just a very good fit. It's a very Bible-based church. We do a lot of expository preaching at our church, and we have a lot of emphasis on community and small groups and things like that. So when I got here when I got here 3 years ago, we were trying to the church was trying to ramp up their small groups. And then around like 6 months into us being here, I took over the small groups ministries. And we've been really, really blessed so far. We went from having one small group to having 11 different small groups. And now we're trying to take it to the next step and trying to have some more educational classes, kind of like a Sunday school for adults in the future. All around that emphasis of having good biblical community for people to get plugged into. So.
Oh, that's very good. Because as what I know about how is the Christianity here in Europe, we don't see many churches with 75, 100 members. So it's very good to see how is your church and that you have 11 small groups. It's difficult to find churches with this number of small groups. Very good.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit with you about this country, Belgium, or especially in Brussels. What are the predominant religions over there?
Yeah. So Belgium is kind of a funny mixture. Half of it speaks Dutch, half of it speaks French. In Flanders, they speak Dutch. In Wallonia, they speak French. The reason why they kind of separated from France and the Netherlands, I think even a long time ago, was because they were Catholic and the religions in the other countries were more Protestant. So what came together to unify Belgium was its Catholicism. So you've got these two different languages being spoken in the country, and then you have Brussels basically in the middle of it, where you're supposed to speak both French and Dutch, and the third unofficial language turns out to be English, which is kind of convenient for us. But yeah, Brussels is a great city. It's very international, as you know. It's where the United Nations is. It's where the EU is. It's where NATO has its offices. So it's really a great place to be because we get so many people from different countries coming and getting to be part of our church as well. The predominant religions in Brussels and Belgium, half of Belgians would claim to be Catholic to some extent. Out of that percentage, I'm not sure how many are practicing Catholics. I would say it's very, very low. Most of the Belgians that I've met outside of church don't know what an evangelical church is. They're more used to a Catholic style church. They'll go, for Easter maybe, for the holidays maybe, and for weddings. But it's definitely a more of a cultural Catholicism than a practicing Catholicism. A lot of the Belgians, we don't have that many Belgians at church. I would say around 20% of the people are Belgian. They are more familiar with evangelical churches from before, even though it's not a very large number here, or very large percentage here in Brussels. There is some significant percentage of charismatic churches, especially around the African communities. But I would say most people will identify as just being culturally Catholic or having no belief at all. So.
Okay. And about the churches, what could you tell us about how are the churches, like how many members there are in the other churches, or how is the liturgy, the programs of the church? You know more about how is the church in America, so maybe compared with America, if there are some huge differences, I don't know. What can you tell us?
So our style is very much like what I was used to in New York City, where you have some pretty good rock and music in the beginning, a very applicable sermon, and then some activities or fellowship time afterwards, or opportunities for fellowship after service. Kind of like your traditional evangelical American style. That's what we've started here in Brussels. That's what the church started here 5 years ago. Other churches that we know of in Brussels, there are some churches that are very, very open, that will just meet in people's homes. I would kind of question how strong their teaching is, since they rotate the teaching on every week. Then there's also some more traditional churches. Obviously, the Catholic Church, very traditional. But I have visited services in Flanders where it's more of a traditional. They'll read some scripture. There will be a sermon, and then there will be some hymns being sung. I'm not sure of many other churches. I think there's one more church that's doing it like we're doing it in Waterloo, but it's very few. So I would think that we are probably the only one in Brussels doing the American style service, and then the other one would be in Waterloo. And besides that, it seems to be a lot of more traditional style services.
Mm-hmm. You said in the beginning that many people doesn't know how are the who we are, no? What is the evangelical church, no? I was thinking, are there many missionaries? There are missionaries. Do you see missionaries around there, or pastors planting new churches? There are agents of missionaries around there.
There's that group in Waterloo that just recently planted another church. So there's a few. I wouldn't say that there's a lot. There's obviously our church. It's very heavy missionary based. There's actually some Dutch missions as well. There's a home that we have here in Brussels just for missionaries. And what they do is they'll have housing and they'll supply food for missionaries that are here visiting. But I don't think there's that. Besides that, there's not that many missionaries here doing work.
Okay, that's good to know in order for us to pray specifically for Brussels, for Belgium. And still about the churches, what do you think? The churches over there are growing or decreasing? How are the churches there?
A lot of the growth that we get tends to be international. The growth from like actual Belgium seems to be a little bit slower, but Brussels is very, very international, obviously with a lot of the international offices being here for Europe and for a lot of the world. But yeah, we've actually we've had unbelievable growth in 5 years. The church has been here for 5 years. Obviously, you start with like 10 people or something very small, to now like we're averaging between 70 and 100 people. We had our 5-year anniversary and we had a record attendance of about 125 people. So there's definitely I think room for growing churches here. Whenever we optimize our outreach strategy, we do get results. So I would say it's a great place to be doing outreach and to have a church, because there are people that are looking. There are constantly people arriving, and then obviously there's the impact that you have of reaching actual Belgians, which takes a bit longer, I feel, but is definitely well worth it.
Okay, and one of my last questions about this country. I would like to know the problems. I don't know if the problem is the right word, but the situations, hard situations. Like one, you said already that is there are no many missionaries around there. So that's something that we should work more on that. Do you see other points?
You mean difficulties for Belgian society? I think the biggest difficulty is just not knowing what a church is, not knowing what it's like to have a relationship with Christ. I always quote this from Tim Keller. People in this society have been inoculated to the gospel, meaning that they've heard it already, and they've already assuming that that's not for them, and they just quickly move on. So that kind of maybe it's a postmodern thing. That kind of mindset is, I think, the greatest need here in Belgium. It's a great place to live. There's great food. There's great activities. The weather is actually not that bad. So in terms of needs that people have, it's very hard for us here to identify, what we need is the gospel. I think that's the greatest challenge. If you do a missionary trip to a third world country, it's pretty easy to have some kind of activity, have some kind of, food service, or have some kind of, housing project that'll supply people's needs and open their hearts to the gospel. Here, it's a bit more difficult because everybody has everything that they need. The way that we try to open people's hearts to it is by developing that community. And Belgians tend to be very close with their friends and family. They tend to have really strong relationships. But we're trying to, just to show them, there's a joy in having fellowship with other Christians, and just showing them, we are a family as well. And this is a relationship that will transform your life. So trying to have community and relationship with Belgians has been very effective. It's a bit more difficult obviously it takes more time to build a relationship. but that's where we're seeing the need is in having those close relationships and fellowships, and having people understand that they do have a need for the gospel.
Okay, very good. And my last question, how can we pray specifically for this country?
It would be for softening the hearts of Belgians to the gospel, and to having relationship and fellowship with other Christians. We do have, we have opportunities for other missionaries to come here to do more church work. But I think Belgium is very, it's a good example of postmodernism, you could say, where everybody's trying to search for their own happiness in their own way. And what that means is that people will often not know that they need the gospel. They might, have difficulties in their life. They might suffer with depression, which is pretty prevalent here as well. But not knowing that they need the gospel, not knowing that that's the ultimate solution for them. So I mean, for prayers, I would just say, pray for the hearts of Belgians, because it's very difficult to try to explain to someone, hey, there's something that I have that I need to tell you about, when they think they have everything that they need. So.
Okay, thank you so much, Luis, to explain better for us about Belgium, especially Brussels. And would you like to tell us a little bit more about you, like your projects or future projects, and also how we can pray for you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working on a few projects at church that I'm obviously involved in the leadership of. Where our hearts are is we'd like to create more French and Dutch speaking content. I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you need a book on Christian marriage, right? If you do a Google search in English, you get hundreds of results. If you do a similar search in French, then it's obviously a lot smaller. But we're trying to create some content for the future in French and Dutch languages for all of Europe to be able to use.
Okay, very good. And do you have more prayer requests?
No, I mean, between the hearts and helping us to create content to be used in French and Dutch, I think that's pretty big. I mean, it's just for us. I do have to mention it's an amazing praise that we've been able to establish ourselves here. That we do have, in my mind, 70 to 100 people is pretty small, coming from the U.S. But we do know that that's an amazing blessing in Europe, in Brussels. So I think that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you very much, Luis. Thank you for to have this time to talk with us about Brussels, and I hope you guys that are watching this video, you can start praying better about Brussels, and remember to pray also for Luis and his church, and we hope God can work even more and more in your life, Luis, in your ministries, your church, and we can see God doing great things over there. God bless you.
Thanks, Albert.